Starting. Here we go. Hey, jump the gun there. All right, Virtual Brown Bag, December 6th. This is where we get together and we talk IT programming shop, share news, tips, tricks, hack on things. We do stream this live, therefore anyone can share, but if you do share, recognize that don't share important secret things like your credit card number and secret passwords into things. Yeah, that was real quick and we're done. All right.
Cool.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, let's see. There was a couple things in the news, right, that are kind of interesting to talk about. There was that Angular 2 is terrible post.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
You all might have heard. And then another...
How's that news? We've been saying that for months now. Go ahead.
Well, there was another post from... I think, was it James Kelly? One of the guys that created Babel. I was talking about one of the maintainers of Babel was talking about how difficult it is to maintain an open source project, and people need to chill out on open source project maintainers. But yeah, let's see.
Who's getting mad at open source project maintainers?
Well, I mean, Angular 2 is terrible. So I think...
Yeah, but I mean, that's not dissing the maintainers. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's taking something really personal versus just going, look, they don't like it, and they think this is why they don't like it. That's sort of weird.
So I think the basic idea is that when that feedback is offered in a non-constructive manner, which I've gotta kind of admit that article wasn't very constructive. Like, hey, here's what should change. It was more like Angular 2 sucks. It's completely wrong-headed. Then that's basically what the idea is. The effect that has, like, on a personal level on maintainers is that they say, well, screw it, I'm going to quit. I'm going to stop maintaining open source projects, and that's not better for anyone. You've actually done the opposite of what you would like to achieve with by providing feedback in that manner. So, I mean, yeah.
Is Angular 2 a traditional open source project?
Yeah, so I would say it's probably not traditional open source project, and
But
also I think this is the internet. And,
it's the internet. That is true.
Lots of people on there are going to say lots of things, not to take it personally. It'd be different. They say Joe is an idiot, and that's why, and this is why they're idiot. They're just saying, hey, they don't like it.
Well,
probably they could have toned it down, but you know what? In the world of the internet and all the stuff like that, if you want to be talked about, like clearly we are already talking about that kind of stuff.
Well,
So
that is, I mean, and again, I don't fully agree with everything James Scott was saying, but I think there is, you do have to consider that it's not just one person, that this is the internet. So you get all the piling on and the hundreds of people, thousands of people calling for your death and beheading that kind of comes with that. And yeah, that doesn't serve anyone. And I think you could argue that it is the it is the responsibility of people writing that articles like that to consider that, right? To consider that is a part of the effect because it is the internet, and to present there are their arguments with that in mind. I think that could absolutely be argued, but I'm also kind of on the side of like, all right, let's not whine about it too much. But yeah, having fewer open source developers, fewer open source maintainers especially, isn't going to help anyone. Like, that's one of the things he said, like, after the whole Babel 6 release, which everyone reacted very vitriolically to, even though, I mean, I don't like the whole thing that they did in Babel 6.
What was the controversy over that again?
Yeah, before Babel 6, Babel would just transpile. It was about transpiling PS6, basically. After Babel 6, Babel became more of a plug-in framework for doing any sort of transpilation. So what the effect that meant is that by default, Babel 6 did nothing. You had to.
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that and being like, wait, how do I?
Right.
And then it's like, oh no, you have to configure a Babel RC and then use this other. So they took that as like a metaphor for the insanity of the.
Well, no. So I mean, this guy was one of the main Babel guys, and basically what he was saying is, they had, and this is to their credit, I remember this. They had said, they had put out the message well ahead of time that this is what the direction they were going. They had looked for feedback and stuff like that. The problem is Babel is so widely used, not all tooling updated at the same time. And you had stuff that broke, and you had people screaming at him, personally, and call him out. And afterward, he said he pretty much quit, and like that's the reason why nothing happened in Babel for like the following year was because he wasn't like doing anything. Yeah,
it was just this one guy. I had no idea. You would think that it's such an important project. I mean, people would be companies would be donating developer hours for something like that. I'm sorry that he got chewed out and had such a. That's too bad.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just like I said, it is something worth thinking about, and I mean because I know that's something I've done before and something like everyone has done, right? Where like we could have this conversation right now, but then we could turn around and I could talk about how like the tests on jQuery, jQuery's unit tests are bullshit, and we'll all be like, they're so unprofessional, they're assholes. So like it's easy to it's just something to keep in mind. So that was the controversy of that. I don't know. Anyway, I know you guys had Elixir thing that you were looking at, which I have not been, but
yeah, I was just taking a look. I was looking at different times, the compile times in our project. Here, let me see if I can share the screen so I can share this stuff so you don't see our ugly faces the entire time, right? Here we go. Where are you? There we are. All right. Yeah. So this is a really good blog post about how Elixir knows what to compile and recompile. I was focusing more on the compile time aspects, but there actually are like little branches from here that I follow that can dive more into like actually how it watches files and how does it know which after files change which one to recompile. So it's pretty interesting. So what the big deal is that it mostly looks at what modules it can see. And this is important when you have when talking about macros and knowing which files, if you change a macro, which files it needs to update because they use that macro.
Right. So what happens with that?
What I think the neatest part is that this is okay. You learn, hey, this is how this stuff is recompiled, but you actually have so it has iNotify. Ignore that part. You actually can find out what things need to be recompiled by using the xref command on Mix. Didn't even know this thing existed, and it actually tells you, hey, these are all the dependency charts.
Dependency tree, which is
exactly. It tells you the dependency tree for your project. So it's pretty cool. I think the main thing, and this article does a really good job of diving down and giving examples of okay, this is a compile time dependency, this is runtime dependency, which ones happen. So if you look here, you can see how the different relationships are occurring. And really, we could dive down into it, spend a whole bunch of time, but I found this interesting article to read. I think the biggest takeaway here, this is a good one, was on Ecto. Is because Ecto is the ORM used by Phoenix, so analogous to Active Record for Rails, was that the relationships, since the relationship you provide the module, essentially, that the relationship is, or the schema for it, that this module is now seen little quotes, seen. So since it is seen, it is then recompiled. And so what some people were running into was that if you have a large ecto model set or whatever, and they all have interdependent relationships with each other, that like you would change one file and it would have to recompile like 40 or 50 because they had like 50 plus 100 models. So that's an extreme case because, I mean, any project you can think where you go like, oh, we have 100 ecto models. And I'm like, you have like, let's just assume even then that you had different views on that data. That's like 50 tables. that's
Wait, so weird. Jamie, what's ecto? It's the ORM?
Yeah, it's the ORM. So it's like active record for Rails.
But
it's different. So
yes. If you have a model in there, are the different parts of it shared in between the different pieces of the application? Like the different actors, I guess?
No. Like, I'm trying to think if you would share between that. Honestly, I haven't done that.
Yeah.
I don't know it would.
Like anti-idiomatic to do that, right?
Well, ecto, I would say no, because I actually think when you interact with ecto, you're not interacting with it itself. I think you're actually interacting with an actor for that stuff anyway. So like, in a way, like, no, that isn't shared between the two actors because they don't even own it. Like it's given to the Phoenix project. So it's here. Let me open up a Phoenix app and we'll take a look at some stuff, and maybe we'll go through some of these things. Here, let me share my screen. Come over here. No one wants to see that. All right, so I'm still working on this. We'll dive more into it later, but so I have my Phoenix project. So if I look in the mix file, see here, I know we have Phoenix ecto, and then ecto calls out the Postgres. So these are the little OTP apps that they're integrating with. So I don't know if you have to set up different ones. I want to say you don't, and it's okay, because when you use a background job queue system, like you don't have to do anything fancy for that to access your ecto models. So so I think that's Magic OTP sort of handles that complexity. But what was happening here was the idea that you say belongs to schema B. Now schema B has to be compiled. And if schema B had a relationship that says has many schema C, then now schema C has to be compiled. And so as you can see, like if you had multiple relationships that reference other things, you change A, and the next thing you know, like you had this whole list of things that needed to be recompiled because the modules were seen by the Elixir compiler. There's little hacks to get around it. Let's actually see if trace this issue so we can showcase that. So there you go. That's good times.
So is that something you are capable of showing, like a demo in your Elixir project?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm still not sure I'm fully understanding, like, as far as communication between two different actors, like you're basically like sending, like, it's typed data, but it's still there's no behavior sent between them, right?
Right. And now to drop the actors aspect, this has nothing to do with the actors. This just has everything to do with the compiler.
Well, right, but the compiler can compile one actor at a time, and I guess that right there is showing dependencies in between files.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm hitting up on is, like, you know, because the compiler basically compiles one actor at a time and deploys it, and the actors are small units, why the heck would any actor be that large? Like, and again, I'm coming from the point of view of the little Erlang I did, not.
Well, it's more like, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a lot of them, right? Like the entire dependency graph changes. Because again, like this is a macro thing, which isn't something I've actually read about. I don't really know what a macro is in the world yet.
It's so think of macros a lot of times as, so have you done C#? Is that
Very little.
Just it's like JavaScript transpilers, but you can write the transpiler.
Right.
programs.
Yeah, and
Oh,
trees
okay.
like with C# like building expression trees and stuff. Like it's pretty easy to do that. In fact, let's just dabble since we're in this topic. So let's sort of dabble with that. And I've done some macros, but I can always. This is always excellent for me trying to teach. Awesome. Let's do. Hey, I have a whole thing called macros. Let's make a new one called VBB. Actually, maybe I'll do mix.
Yeah, how many VBB projects are you gonna have?
Awesome, about 5 million. Okay, so what is it? Mix. All right, so let's have our tests. What do we want to call this?
Macros are us, of course.
Macros tests. If I remember correctly, yeah. And so, all right. So macro, like you can quote and unquote things. Let's pull this stuff up. Again, this is me completely unprepared for the stuff that I was doing. Forgive, we're a little bit slow and we're doing.
Yeah, I can read the definition of a macro from the documentation. In the simplest of terms, macros are special functions designed to return a quoted expression that will be inserted into our application code. Imagine the macro being replaced with a quoted expression rather than called like a function. With macros, we have everything necessary to extend Elixir and dynamically add code to our application.
Right. I think the main thing is recognizing that you can actually see like the AST does the syntax tree, and so that's what quote and unquote's really
final. You're like doing these final touch-ups, like like the code is already run, and so right now you're just transforming it, and so it's an extra step that's not represented in the call stack.
So when you compile a language, it gets down into this type of syntax tree type thing, and then this is what's actually then compiled into assembly or whatever in process. Again, I'm not an expert at Erlang stack and how they do it, but I've built my own language back when Napster was still a thing, so we'll forgive some stuff. But so when you do quote and do, what it does is it takes this Elixir expression and breaks it down into the tree and so that it creates. So if you look here, this is saying, hey, this is the function. The function is plus.
Yeah, why don't you store that in a variable, and that way we can like
that's cool. I've never seen just looked at the AST before of any language like very closely.
This is actually using the exact same terminology that Lisp uses too when you talk about this stuff.
Like
quoted expression, yeah.
A quoted expression is what?
It's the AST.
Yeah, it's AST, and then you can unquote it. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's do this. Let's just call this tree, and we'll do a quote. So now we have tree, and I'm not sure.
So there's got to be like an exec or something like that.
Yeah, so you can have a two-string. I'm looking at some of the documentation, but there's a way to execute it. I know there is. I just need to figure out how you do it. Next, how do you execute the AST? Because macro sort of is fanciness around this aspect, being able to execute,
like manipulate the tree, like direct. Like, hold on, directly or before it hits the tree?
So let's write some macros, and so we can sort of see how this thing goes with it. All right, so we have our system here. We want to define a macro, and what we'll do is we'll just say hello world or whatever.
The macro is going to be called hello world. Well, let's have a macro that automatically adds 1 to any number
Okay.
or doubles any number. Like that might be a, yeah.
So
Number would be
number
Mhm.
that should work, and then we should be able to say inside here. I think we say use.
Yeah, I guess actually just doubling a number is not good. A better one would be like to replace any multiplication with a subtraction, with an addition.
Yeah, that would be,
That would be one that's a little more because doubling it just looks like a function. Now that I think,
Yeah, let's expand from this because I want to make sure.
Okay.
It's been a while since I.
so something that you couldn't do with just a function.
yes, yeah,
Right.
Where it will manipulate the actual code itself at runtime, and not just on a string level, like on the
Right, like not just use regexes, but
yeah. Or it's actually manipulating the abstract syntax tree.
All right, error load is not loaded, could not be found. What do we call this? BBL macro.
Lowercase m.
Yeah, see, I've always done it with because I had to use. So one reason is like there's a pattern that we use when we use using to bring it in, and so I'm always going to be like failing because I'm like, how do I do it without doing this?
require import. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm looking to see if we can just do it. Let's try to import. There we go. So there, that works. Let's extend this out and be like, we'll call this map. And we'll pass in 30. We'll do array. We'll do 30 and what we'll do inside here is we'll have a def math. We call it math tests, just under underscore test. And now, instead of what we're going to do is we're going to loop over these. So in noon map, we're going to be testing unquote. And we're just gonna, who cares? Like,
there's nothing about this so far that couldn't just be a regular function, though, right? Like this could still be a regular function.
Not adding a test function to your module, you're adding function or dynamically adding functions.
Really? But I mean,
I guess you're looping through it.
Yeah.
We can give it a shot. Let's give this a shot and see if we can do it regular. Assert number is equal to a number.
Do you not have to import like the testing module into this file?
It might have to. That's what I'm saying. Like the using is a little bit different. That's what I'm used to doing. And where the using, you have the same context. So this might. Oh, hey, there you go.
I don't care for that at all.
But because you're not executing
this,
that's why it would be different.
Yeah, but that would be confusing as heck because you could, use a different test function or something. That would be an example, I would argue, of a bad macro that you shouldn't do.
Well, we're using stuff like this, like so we use this pattern or some things for behaviors associated with things. So like when we have an endpoint that has paging or like you can sort and filter by different properties, as you can imagine, you can have this here and we have things, it could be like pageable endpoint. And then you can also be sortable on, and you can be like created at, inserted at. So, and it will create the tests for that. So instead of a lot of that dependency, it's easier.
Well, right. No, so the part that I'm objecting to specifically, I assume the test function comes out of xunit.case, or is that not right? Yeah. So someone who can use this macro what if they didn't know that they had to use xunit.case?
You can have certain
Yeah.
callbacks and other stuff that you can enforce with
Or,
some.
for example, like what if they, they were using xunit.case, but they also defined an assert function somewhere in there or something that overrides that. Like that's the part. The fact that some context
Yeah.
magically.
Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb.
Yeah. So let's do the more interesting part where it actually modifies the AST.
This is modifying the AST.
Well, I mean, like where like pass in anything that's multiplication gets transformed into addition, something like that.
I don't think I've ever done that before. Like, I'm trying to, like, you would have to manipulate the AST directly, and
Right.
that's weird. Like, why would we do like I guess it's a little bit different than expression trees, because expression trees you would do that, but here is a little bit more. You use the quote and unquote, just write some elixir that's going to be generated from it. I mean, we could. How can we execute even an AST that we found?
Isn't that what uncode is, or is that not it?
No, it like takes something that's outside the quote and lets you bind it inside. Because otherwise, it would be the value at that time, if I remember correctly. I'm thinking about they had an example one time. I was talking about date time. Like if you didn't unquote it, it was doing it at the compile time. Actually, no, like unquoted would do it at the compile time, but like if you wanted to run it when it did it, you'd have to use something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, let me see if we can figure this out. Elixir macros. So what we had the 1 + 2. So now we have that. So let's see if we can find. I'm looking on the other page. Here we go. How can we execute you, brah? Looking here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have traverse underscore escape.
Traverse is good.
Expand. Done that.
Validate. That's useful.
I'm wondering if it's like as nasty as toString, then like we eval something.
There's no way, because this is like a very standard thing.
Well, you don't like it's standard in the sense that you use quote and unquote.
Actually, well, hold on. Actually, you wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to actually evaluate it because it'd be evaluated by the code. You're just transforming the ASD.
What do you mean evaluate by the code? Like trees right now, tree is a tuple.
So okay. If I'm following this correctly, right now, can you write a test and use double, but pass in 1 + 2 into double? And like, would that work?
No.
That wouldn't work, right?
No, because number
difficult.
is still looking for a variable. 1 + 2 is an expression. It'd pass in 3.
Well, so the part where it would fail would be at the unquote, right? Or
no, because what would be 1 + 2 is 3, and 3 goes into here.
oh, okay. So it wouldn't actually pass in 1 + 2.
Right.
Is that an expression?
Correct.
So I think that's the first question. How do you take in the input into the macro as an expression? Right?
Yeah, I guess you can. They have some things where you can pass in an express. Let me take a look. But if you're asking, one of the reasons why it's odd is because what you're asking isn't how I typically have used it and seen it used.
Okay. Yeah, because my understanding, like that's the kind of stuff where macros get really powerful is you're doing that meta programming stuff.
That's what I thought macros were, at least in Java. Like when people talked about bringing macros to JavaScript, that's what they meant. Yeah. I couldn't think of. I have a question.
Well, to me, like it's I guess I'm bringing it from Rails perspective, saying the meta, like extending the language.
Yeah, it's just code generation.
Yeah, code generation, extending the language.
Yeah.
So you can write like little like. I mean, it's probably the way that Angular it adds all this weird syntax stuff, but then it uses a macro to transform those into calls, transform the syntax tree so you can use basically like irregular keywords and stuff like that.
Well, macros, like at the very core, from what I understand, like Elixir has a little bit of stuff, but then Elixir is built in Elixir.
Mhm.
Like once you add just a core bit, everything else in the language is actually built through macros and functions and stuff. Like so that's the use case I understand it, which is like extending the language, like replacing, so I did that with C# with expression trees when I was trying to get into the framework back in the day to let me use POCO objects. I would go through the expression tree and replace the references to their crap with my crap. But I guess I wouldn't do that here. I'm trying to figure out why I would need to replace anything in the tree versus extending the language to provide what I want.
Where I've heard about it before a lot is like, again, in Lisps, or like adding new syntax to the language.
Yeah, that
what I'm saying.
was the example that I was thinking of.
Yeah, and that's what this would do. So it's we can add something like that and it would extend the language.
But that wouldn't add new syntax because that's not different from just creating a double function.
I would like to find an example of something you can do in a macro that you can't do with just a function.
Yeah.
This?
Well, no, but you can. You can create a function that does exactly that. You just have to you just have to use the core libraries. The only difference is that uses the context.
XUnit itself is with macros too, like the test and the do and all that stuff. I was like extending language to have those as well.
But those could be a function. We know those could be a function because, for example, in Jasmine or Mocha, those are just functions, right? Like it looks exactly the same way, and it works with just regular functions. So it might be using a macro under the hood in this case, but it could just be a function. It's just more elegant, or for whatever reason they decided to it's more applicable in this case to do a macro.
Yeah. You could also, I guess to me, I'm looking and thinking, yes, you could also just write JavaScript and not use Babel and ES6. So why even use ES6? You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's actually exactly the metaphor, right? Because Babel is a form of macros for JavaScript. That's kind of what it is, and what it's most of what it's doing is absolutely something that you could do otherwise. But that's more of because of the way that it's more of because that's the way that it's defined, right? So, like for example, you could write a Babel plugin that inserts a console.log after every single one of your lines of code. You could absolutely do that. And yes, you could do that manually, but if you use a Babel plugin, you wouldn't have to. So I think that would be the equivalent here of like, okay, how would you make a macro that inserts a console.log after interleaves it with all the lines of code that are passed into it? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I don't think you would be able to do that without calling the macro.
Right.
You have to call it.
If
you're calling it based on your discussion, based on your point of view, if you're calling it, then you might as well, like, it can be replaced by a function.
Well,
and I'm sure there's some things that you can probably do.
I don't think you need to call it because you would build up an expression and return an expression.
What do you mean?
So the macro returns an expression. That's what it does, right?
Right.
So your macro would take in an expression, then break it up into its constituent, then interleave new nodes into that AST and return that new AST. Right?
I mean, I don't see how that's any different. Like, you would have to call the macro with your expression. Like, what's the syntax you're looking to do?
Of course, yeah, you would call it. But the syntax, so the syntax would be like, log all the things, and then you write an expression in there, right? Exactly. And after every single expression in there, it would log and say that was one, that was, it's not logging your variables, it's just logging whatever it's logging. It just says, right? So in this case, maybe you would get 3 log statements.
And we'll just have it say what? Let's say hello.
Yeah, just say hello 3 times.
I think we do. I think we can do. I'm looking here too. Okay.
But yeah, okay.
All right, and so
you would expect. So I would expect the block variable to be something similar to what you showed above when you were, what tree looks like above, right? Something like that.
I don't think it would be. That's my guess.
No, it is.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so now we would somehow have to. It looks like a tuple of something. So we would have to build up a new tuple.
The tuple of the transverse and map. Let's take a look if we have some macros inside there. Application.
Yep.
Where are you? There you go. Looking here, there's a pre-walk and walk traverse. Traverse seems pretty good. Perform a depth first traverse of quoted expressions using any accumulator. That seems like a winner. So we'll just have, I think if we do quote do block, it'll just execute that. And so let's just have, so you can see what happens. Find block. Oh, this should be quote. So I'd expect this to execute the code and come up from there. All right, so 22 is what we would expect. So what we need to do now is just manipulate the block such that it does something different.
Probably with that traverse method.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Traverse, and starts.
So
Here, let me show this so we can see. And the AST, the accumulator, pre and post. And I assume the pre and post are functions. Here, let me show the type spec here so we can.
Oh, that doc on traverse is not super handy.
Or we can just say, how about this?
Well, there's an accumulator, right? So, yeah, I don't know what pre and post is, but the accumulator would be something. Well,
so we would just start with the AST that we're traversing.
Yeah.
The accumulator is based on what we're going to be building off of, and so
Right.
I think it's fine if it's. We'll start off with the tuple.
Yeah.
We have a pre and a post.
I don't know. Yeah.
So I don't know why we'd have separate things out. Let's find out. So
do you need to transform block into a tree in order to traverse it?
Like it, I think imagine the macro traverse handles that complexity.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on. Pre is I'm just looking at a blog post. I think pre is something that happens before traversal and post is afterwards. I think, because in this case they're naming the parameters pre-traversal and post-traversal. So maybe that. But man, yeah.
Oh, maybe I don't have to. This guy is not doing the binding syntax, so maybe we don't have to do that. Imagine that's what it returns is a new block, which actually doesn't spec. Yeah, so I don't need to
Yeah,
bind
yeah.
those
So
because there are variables inside this scope if they're out of scope.
I would just maybe, yeah, I see what you're doing there.
All right, so string char is not implemented for block. What is he doing? Oh, because he's using a string, so the node is a little bit different, I guess.
Yeah, how?
String cover line 14, yeah. So
Sure.
yeah, like I'm not sure that's
Yeah.
gonna work. There we go. So
Okay. So wait, it output it. How many times did it? Yeah, like have.
the pre,
Yeah.
and then we can see.
I think it's gonna do it only once, but I'm not sure.
So we
no,
see
okay.
it goes pre, and we got the
Okay.
equal, and this is our first line. Because let's remember
Okay,
our
yeah.
thing. We had 3 lines. We have a equals 10, b equals 12, a plus b.
Mhm.
So we have pre, which does a.
Well, no, but the first pre happened before that.
Oh, even a pre had the whole thing, then
Yeah.
broke it down to the first statement. Then we got the different values.
Oh,
So once it got down to the end of the tree, it then calls a
Mhm.
post.
yeah, yeah. So it's walking that tree.
Right.
It's calling this every single time. So now
For post, then we don't really need to do anything. We want to change it inside here.
Okay. Does the return value of pre-traversal matter?
Let's find, because you think the post is where we should make the change and not the pre.
I'm just my reading of it was that the pre and the post were not for manipulating, but I could very well be wrong.
Can't you just pass like an IO inspect like a pipe operator into post traversal and then you're done? You've logged all the things.
No, we can. Oh, so see which, because you want to. I want to just replace the plus first and see how we get with that.
Okay.
I guess it is. Now I'm thinking about if you did do the traversal, it'd be really weird to replace it because
You would have to
it only happens a certain time. Like,
well, you would have to replace. Yeah, whenever you are at a place that has that's basically a terminal node, right?
yeah.
You would have to insert a console, a log statement somehow.
Let's do this. How about let's do case do conditional to case on node, and we'll say if it looks like this plus, and we have let's look inside here. So that's a pre for the plus. Here's a pose, and we don't care about you were there, you were there, you were there, you're wrapped in. So yeah, so if it was, we'll just call this A, B. Just
are we back? Oh, okay. So are we back to trying to replace the plus with the?
Yeah, I just want to see if we can do this.
Okay, yeah, that might be easier. And we're gonna put that in the post.
Well, we should have this as the default.
Yeah.
Just return node. See, that didn't change.
That didn't change it though. So now let's try it in the pre.
Oh no, because I didn't change the block, so I didn't. Oh, if we look here, it did change it. So if I say new block is equal to this, and we'll just keep this here because we're going to want to be able to test it. Invalid quoted expression.
Is new block maybe not quoted?
Expand. Maybe we don't have to. Oh, what? You would think you would. Undefined function, new block.
Oh, so what is new block?
It's this. Oh, look, it's wrapped in the
In the
of thing we don't. And if that's the accumulator, what if we? I don't think I can pass it.
so yeah, you would just need to unwrap it, right?
There we go.
120.
Booyah!
Is that
But-
accurate? Wait,
10 times 12 is
No!
120.
that's pretty rad. Yeah, that's exactly. what it is.
But that isn't what we would want. It should be 120, not wrapped in a tuple.
Well, right. Oh, I see.
Can you just do pattern matching at the end
I can
to,
see
to remove?
Yes.
this. Unwrap it. Why is it wrapped?
Yeah. No, I see what JB is saying. Yeah, because in the end, so
You need like a blank or whatever you call that. I don't know. No, right.
no.
No, it's not liking that. Like I can just get the first element out of this tuple. Like it feels like this whole thing's wrapped in a tuple. That's not well.
But it
Oh,
should-
see, look, this is wrapped in tuple with a comma nil,
yeah.
and we don't need that. Why would it even do that?
There we are.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
All right.
So now let's use this everywhere.
We'll call this replace.
Yeah.
Clean this guy up. And we'll use him here.
Yeah.
Giggles. Let's see what happens if you do. And then, but two.
Okay. And I don't think can you reassign to Y?
You should be able to reassign the Y.
Okay.
I mean, let's do that. We should be able to reassign the Y. I mean, it's a variable. It's reassign things.
Oh, I thought just because we didn't have variables.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, that works.
Now for the real craziness. I don't think that's going to work.
Nice.
Oh, never know it did. Hey.
Yeah, because the AST would be
Yeah.
broken down further.
Yeah, I was worried if if it would break it
now,
down. Like
how does
further.
string concatenation work in Elixir?
Uh,
Is it with the plus operator?
no, it's two pluses.
Oh, okay. All
Actually, it's not pluses. It's this. You do
Okay. That's
Zero.
weird, but
doing bind.
that's smart. That's weird.
You're weird.
All right. Well,
All right. So we wanted to do the log all the things. Let's just keep rolling on that.
So that one's going to be tougher because we just need to know how to output. So we would need to take each of the terminal nodes and break it out into an additional level of the tree with two nodes inside of it.
Right.
So that is tougher.
And we need to know what the hell logging looks like as a ASD. So we would like to do IO dot puts, and all we're gonna do is just say hi.
Right.
Okay, so it's that :IO.
Right. So this is getting the context of the stuff, like it's breaking it down, like so that what module we're referencing and so forth. So let's just assume we're gonna put this here. And for every, let's copy and paste this and do, we call it log all the things. Log all the things. We don't care about changing that. What we care about is adding these steps to each other. It would, and I messed that up. Quote do. What's it? IO dot. There we go. This is what we want to inject. Okay. So what I'm looking for here is, so the first part of it is the function that you're calling. The next is the context that's doing, and then the other one are the optional parameters, if I remember. And if we're doing each of these, there's the different lines or ones we're executing. So if we want, what we want to do is after each node, how about we'll make the new node equal to current node, comma, new node, and then log node. I don't think that I'm doing this right. We probably want to wait till the end of a post, like at the very end of a post.
I think so. You need to do this only on the terminal node, so you don't.
Right.
You wouldn't do this on every node.
Right. That's what I'm getting to as well.
Yeah.
So let's post and let's. And as we're doing this, I'm going to replace this so that it's a little wider. So we want to look and how we would know that it's the end when it's nil. Haha, because that's the last line. Then when it's nil, we're going to inject our crap at nil and wrap it in an array. Okay, so if we say, hey, node is equal to case node do, and if it doesn't match, we return the node. Otherwise, if it's, we don't care about that one, we don't care about that one, but we do care if it's nil. So if we say, hey, if it's nil, what we want you to do is say, do your normal stuff, but now inject our log node inside here.
Oh, like that. Okay.
Side match AB. What are you talking about? I told you it's right here.
Yeah, I would expect
Called as
Yeah.
a.
I would expect this node to be broken out into two nodes. or something.
Right. Well, let's look
Rather
at the
than-
Elixir AST. Make sure I understand the different components because I.
Yeah. Why don't you look at the AST for a for a 2-line statement that includes a log. Is one of them.
First element is an atom or another tuple in the same representation. Second element is the keyword list containing metadata like numbers and context. Third element is a list of arguments for a function. Okay. So that's the nil isn't what we're looking for. We want to inject it in a different spot. So post gets 12. That's so it went down to 12. It comes back up. This would be in line. Oh, so look, it even has these little line numbers. I wonder if we have to do something like that too. Yeah, this is weird.
I would assume the line number stuff is for debuggers.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily.
Like
actually, can you? What happens when you quote directly in the console? Does it give you a line number then? Yes. So I don't think there's no line number, so that seems optional.
Right.
Yeah.
So what if we did? So let's just try doing it inside the console for now. Ever tree. So what if we do quote tree? Okay. That's how we weren't we executing? Oh, that's why it is executing it. Because since we're in a macro, when we call the quote, it does something because it's expecting, it executes the tree that's returned from a macro. Because what I want to see is how can we add a statement to it?
So I would assume that we have to break it out into a node that contains two other nodes. Right? Like the depth of the tree is not set. If you do if you do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, then that's not going to be a single node with 4 elements. That'll be quote 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Let's see what it looks like.
So with A equals 10. So now we can have here. So if you look here, we have the first where it gets A, then it gets 10. So if we look at the tree, you had A and 10, and then you have equals up top here.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes up, and that's what it does. So the question is, where do you put the log? Where do we want to log?
Right.
At the A and the 10 and stuff? Let's just try that.
Well, no, but that won't work, will it? Because, I mean, if you inject a new AST statement there, that won't assign 10 to the A. The equals operates on those parameters. So you have to be a little smart. I think a little smart about that, because there's no such concept as lines. But I think you would have to go off the operators, right? So.
But it'd have to be, I guess you're saying, if the accumulator is accumulating as a tree, so how are we going to inject?
So hold on. In the interactive console, can you show me like what 1 plus 2 plus 3 looks like?
Yeah, we were looking at that.
Right. So okay. So this, what? Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out where everything goes. All right. So look, yeah, that's 2 pluses, and each one takes 2 parameters, right? And we start with the innermost one, which here can you copy that output and drop it into just a text file, and I'll
What I want to see is like how you separate the different statements. Oh, here we have block that, and then you pass, and then you have the different statements. Because how do I know when one statement is done and when you're ready for the next one?
Right. Yeah. Well, so what do you mean? The statement is done when that I guess what are the square braces called? That's not a tuple, is it?
Yeah, list.
When that list closes out, that's when that statement is done.
So if we look here, we know the statement is done because.
Well, hold on, but here you're just logging at each of the posts. So really, only the last one would be want to grab.
Unused. We mean variable A is unused.
Log node.
Oh, undefined function Y. That's what's going on. Okay, so.
Right. So So here we have a single plus an assignment. So colon equals is binding, and you're binding it to the colon A. So the variable named A, which is a terminal node. Because that's interesting. Could you have anything other than a simple variable name on the left hand side?
Yeah, we could have another number.
On the left-hand side of an equal?
Oh, an equal sign. Oh. You can have matches. It's a match. It is an assignment.
Oh, okay. So there, yeah, okay. So then you can have, and then the 10. So the 10, for example, could be replaced, I think, with a list with a tuple in it, and the tuple would have, would have plus 5, 5 or something.
Well, this is saying it's going to this function. And these are the parameters that's being passed into it. So
Sure.
like
Well, so
I'm abusing the term function and stuff too.
Yeah,
For this,
yeah.
so it's not
And those are 2 parameters then. also.
right. So my question is like, how do we get like if we did this as another line?
Mhm. Right. So you would
It knows because it has.
you wouldn't do it at that level. You would do it at one level higher up than that. So what? So the one level higher up than that
Is what?
would be well in this case there isn't. So I guess the question. Okay, so how would you? So I would okay, right. So I think that there would be 2 things. So in order to interleave it in between all the lines, which is the first thing that we said, every single time you're kind of at a level, you would break that up into 2 levels. Like what does just 2 log statements look like, right? 2 IO inspect statements look like.
What if like I'm gonna see if what happens if I match on the block
Yeah.
and I don't care what this thing is. I'm gonna put L because it's been line number stuff. And here is my commands or statement. How about that? That's better. So here's my commands. What I do is I return the L. This time I'm going to take the statements and I will add a log statement.
So what does plus plus do in this situation?
It's like a nation essentially, or pushing onto the list. This is very non-performant because I'm adding it on the end of it. It's kind of weird, but matching an Elixir quote.
Yeah, because now you're getting too many parameters in that list. With one of the parameters being a right.
Because also this is.
All right.
And it only happens one time for the block, and we want it every other
Right.
statement. So what we'll do then is new statements. What could we do?
Oh crap! We're at the hour already.
Yeah, we're geniuses. I want to interweave with this. How do I do this? I can just do, let's do enum.map statement. And what we'll do is we'll return the statement with our log node. And then let's not work. There we go. So hi, A plus B, and
That's fun. But that would be cool. Yeah, that's really cool. So wait, so what did you do for that? Okay.
Yeah, so let's change this to say log statement so it's clear. Yeah, I took the new statements and I just put them together, then I flatten it out.
Okay.
There's probably a better way of doing this.
Yeah.
Like using some other mechanism. Like I think that like maybe, I don't want to say like an unzip maybe or something like that. I have to take a look. But it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so block was a statement whenever you see the lines of code together, I guess.
Yeah. And now nothing will return anything. Right?
It'll always log things.
Yeah. It'll always rob things, never return anything.
Let's just change that. Here we go. We're fixed now.
Yeah. All right. I do have to run. I'm
Yep,
flying out
that's
today.
good.
Yeah.
And we showed just how terrible I am, but we
No,
we hacked it together. We accomplished it. Mission accomplished.
seriously. Yeah.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Laters.
Okay, bye.